Hello everybody and welcome back to A Royal Reader. My name is Cici and today we're going to be doing my February wrap up. So in February I somehow managed to read 10 books. I don't exactly know how I managed to accomplish it. A lot of them are just Kindle reads, so I think that's probably why I managed to read so much, but let's get into it. So for the month of February, I had rolled 2 thrillers and a YA fantasy. I did manage to read 1 thriller and also 1 YA fantasy. I didn't manage to read a 3rd thriller, unfortunately, but I read some books that were pretty spooky, so I would say, even though they're not technically thrillers, they would probably fit the bill. So for the month of February, the first book I finished was a drag over from January. I have been reading this for the last couple of months, and that was Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy, possibly. This is an adult fantasy that is available on Kindle Unlimited. Obviously, being the second book in a series, I can't exactly say too much, but this book was incredible. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved the structure and the storytelling that Carissa Broadbent used in this one. It definitely did not have the second book slump in it whatsoever. I was intrigued, I would say, 80% of the time. There was a bit where it did sort of lull and there was things that were going a little bit slower than normal, but it definitely made up for it in the end. The story follows Tasana, who is a slave. At the beginning of the story, attempting to buy her freedom, and in doing so, a terrible accident happens that forces her to flee. She does have some magic, which is sort of, I wouldn't say not known, but it's definitely something that isn't publicized to the world. So when she escapes and she has to leave, she decides that she's going to go to the Magisterium, the Order. I can't exactly remember what it was called, but they are essentially the guild of magicians. And she decides that she's going to try and get their help, or at least enlist and get their help so that she can go back to be able to liberate her friends and family that she's left behind. Things go a little bit awry. She is told that she is too old to actually start learning and being taught and being inducted into the order, because I think she's about 21 and the age that they start getting people in is around 13 or 12. But there is one person that they decide that they're going to put her with as a teacher, and that is our second main character, who is Maxentarius Fairloin. He is a grumpy old man is the best way I can put him. There is definitely reluctance there because of some things that happened in his past. It is a wonderful story. I 100% recommend it, but do check out the trigger warnings. There are quite a few, but I still love the story nonetheless. It was amazing. I am 100 pages into the 3rd book, which is the final book in the series, and I am terrified and scared. The next book that I finished was my thriller, so that was Riley Sager's Home Before Dark. This is I want to say, the run-of-the-mill horror story involving a house. If you guys have seen Haunting of Hill House, I think that's the one, because Bly Manor. Is it Haunting of Hill House or Haunting of Bly Manor? I think it's Hill House. If you guys have watched that, it is a very similar vein to that story, I think, where we have our main character's father wrote a sort of recounting story of their time staying in their manor. I think it was Laneberry Lane, something along those lines, or Burberry, not Burberry. I think it might have been Baneberry Lane. He wrote a story recounting the horror paranormalistic things that happened while they were staying in that house, and it sort of blew up and they gained popularity over it, and so on and so forth. Our main character never believed that the things that happened in that story were true. She just thought it was all like a hoax. And unfortunately, one day her father does pass away, and she is left in his will the house. He never sold it when they left it. So she decides that she's going to go back, she's going to renovate it, get it all fancy and pretty, and try and sell it so she can be rid of it. While she's there, she discovers that there is a couple of things that her father mentioned in the book that may have actually been true. So it's kind of this story where we've got a main character whose name I cannot remember, is sort of trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't. I wouldn't say it's an unreliable narrator, but there was definitely aspects of it where it kind of felt that way. I didn't really like it whatsoever. The writing was very simple, and it kind of had like that sort of would he, won't he vibe. I don't know if it's because I've watched a lot of horror movies within the last like 3 months. My partner and I kind of went on the binge and watched like a whole bunch of horror movies. Meh. That is the best way I can describe this book. It was meh. If you have seen Haunting of Hill House, if you've seen any type of horror movie involving a house, it is extremely reminiscent of that. Extremely. So this one I only gave a 2.75 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was my YA fantasy role. I picked up With Fire in Their Blood by Kat Delaquart. This was because it was like mafia romance, very gothic, dark, mysterious, which I thought would fit the vibe, seeing as I rolled, you know, 2 thrillers. In this one we have our main character, Lily, who has just moved into the small town of Castello in like the Italian countryside. She's there with her father after her mother passed away, unfortunately, in a very tragic way. So there is mentions of suicide and parental death in here for trigger warnings. This town has sort of been separated into 2 clans, tribes, what have you, and they've sort of been reconnected together by this one man called the General, and he's sort of like the ruling lord over this town. And it's a very weird story. It's hard to explain because it has, I would say, like military aspects. Didn't really vibe well with me, but it's also like we're in this crumbling Italian city and the vibes are there, and there's also like hints of magic and mystery, and I don't know, it was a very weird read. I didn't really like it, but I was still reading it, if that made sense. I only gave this one, I think, a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was fine, but I'm definitely not going to continue on with the series. I was just very confused by everything that was going on. So I'll put the next 3 books that I read all together because they are all part of the same series. So I read the first 3 books in the Marionette series by Katie Wismer. This involves The Marionettes, Wicked Souls, and Bloodless Ties. This is a paranormal urban fantasy involving witches and vampires and creepy stuff. Katie Wismer's inspiration for the series was Vampire Academy, and there is definitely those vibes there, especially in the first book. I really like this series. I gave the first 2 books in the series a 4 out of 5 stars. I gave the third one a 3 out of 5 stars. It just wasn't the route I was expecting it to go. Not saying that it was bad, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. It definitely left on a cliffhanger that is getting me excited for the 4th book, which comes out in September. This series follows our main character, Valerie Darkmoor. She is one of the last blood witches that there is in this world. Witches have affinities for different types of elements like magic, like fire, water, earth, air, things like that. There is also witches who are shapeshifters, and in this world there is a society, I guess, of witches called the Marionettes, who are basically like a noble vampire's bodyguard in a way. And at the beginning of the story, our main character Valerie gets put with the Crown Prince as her marionette partner. There's something very wrong going on with Valerie's magic that she's not entirely too sure what is happening, and she is worried that it's going to affect her chances at becoming a marionette. That's the first book. The story evolves into something much bigger than that. I really liked it. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. It's a very quick read, and it's also very atmospheric, definitely atmospheric. The spice level increases with each book. The third one was definitely the spiciest. There was something that I thought was going to happen that I was going to like nope out of the book quickly, but it didn't happen, thankfully. All I can say was, why was he reaching for a screwdriver? So the next book that I read was for, I was going to participate in the readathon, romantasy-a-thon that Tori Between the Books, or Between the Pages I think her channel name is, was hosting a readathon where you read fantasy romance. There was a bunch of different prompts and groups and things like that. The group book that was picked for the readathon was A Court of Ravens and Ruins, so I did decide to pick this one. It was only like 300 pages and read it quite quickly. In this we follow our main character, who is a, what is she? Gold-touched gold spinner? Something along those lines. This story is very heavily inspired by Norse mythology, and in this there are 5 different courts of Fae. Then there's the human realm. Our main character lives in the Gold Court. The Gold Court is ransacked by the Shadow Court, and she is kidnapped and taken to the Shadow Court by the Crown Prince because he wants her for something specific, and she's kind of dealing with her powers going a little bit haywire. I didn't really like the main character all that much, and there was a character in this that's like kind of the main character's best friend. She was meant to be 18, but she read like a 13-year-old with her actions, with everything. Even one of the other characters mentions that she is like a child, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. Also, nothing happened in this book. Literally nothing happened, and I was bored. Even though I'm pretty sure I read this within like 2 sittings, I was bored. So I only gave this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I don't think I'm going to read the second book in the series, but the world was interesting, especially with it being inspired by, you know, Norse mythology and Vikings and things like that. It's definitely an interesting take on Fae that I haven't seen yet, but I don't know, nothing was happening. So the next book I decided to pick up was just on a whim. I read the next 2 books when I went and visited my family for a couple of days, and then had the worst plane experience back home. So I read Their Vicious Darling. This is the 3rd book in the Vicious Lost Boy series by Nikki St. Croix. It's like a Peter Pan inspired retelling in a way, but just make it extra smutty. This one I only gave a 2.75 out of 5 stars. I didn't like this one as much as I liked the previous 3 in the series. This was definitely just a lot of smut. It was kind of like porn without plot. And especially because at the end of the 3rd, is this the 3rd book? Yes. So at the end of the 2nd book, there is a massive cliffhanger and like massive plot twist that happens that isn't even like discussed properly until like 50 to 70 pages in, when it sort of starts off like exactly, you know, like 2 minutes after the 2nd book just finished. So that really annoyed me. I don't know, I thought there was going to be something different, and there was like more smut in this one than there was like the previous 2, which, like, the smut is well written. It was a good time, but I really wanted more of the plot. The next book I finished was one that I really wasn't expecting to read, but my mum had a copy. She got it in one of those like swap buy sell things. And that was Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. This is a dark paranormal fantasy where our main character has accidentally summoned a demon, and that demon has actually been sent to kill her, and she's sort of dealing with her feelings for him, and he's dealing with the fact that he doesn't really want to kill her, but he wants to like take her soul. It was just, there is a lot of kinks in this book, and there is a lot of trigger warnings in this book. Read everything before you go in. I knew what I was expecting going in, but at the same time it was still kind of like a slap in the face when I was reading it. And I would say that like some of it did actually kind of pull me out of reading. And I don't know if it's because I don't like reading stuff that's set in modern day settings. I don't like it when they talk about pulling out their iPhone or pulling out their headphones to put on a playlist that has, you know, this modern artist. It really breaks like that fourth wall for me. So I think I don't want to be listening. I don't want to be reading stuff that's set in modern day times, I don't think. I mean, like, Mortal Instruments and Vampire Academy, sorry, they don't mention that sort of stuff. Like, they don't mention watching Friends or, you know, listening to Taylor Swift or stuff like that. This one did, and it just, like, I didn't like it, but I still read it nonetheless. It was definitely interesting. If you enjoy dark stuff, give this a read. But this was just kind of meh for me, so I only gave this one a 3.5 to 5 stars. I'm not going to continue reading on the rest of the series because it does follow different characters that are involved within the first book. I wasn't really interested in them when I was reading about them, so I don't want to read a whole book dedicated to them. Don't know if I mentioned it yet, but I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then lastly, I read a book that is the beginning of I think it's like a 5 or 6 book series. This was Air Awakens by Elise Kovar. This is the first book in the Air Awakens series. This is very like reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where every sort of district of the world has different types of elemental magic. In this, the kingdom, like the king of the realm, is currently fighting against the people of the north. And our main character is Valhalla, I think that's how I want to pronounce it. It's probably wrong. She is a library apprentice, and one night she is pulled out of bed and tasked with trying to find a cure for a poison that is currently affecting one of the crown princes, and it's, you know, he's going to die from it and stuff like that. So as she is looking for the cure through all of these books, she discovers that she actually has magic, and she's, you know, a sorcerer. Throughout the entire book, she's dealing with the fact that if she wants to become a sorcerer, she's going to have to leave the life that she has just known for the last 18 years behind. Or she can give up this magic that is going to save the world, essentially, and go to the life that she has. So it was a very interesting read to see like the turmoil that she had. Not a lot happened in this book. It's definitely a setup story. Definitely a slow burn romance, 100%. But I liked it nonetheless. I guess one of 3 out of 5 stars. I definitely think it'll get better as I read. It was a very, very quick read. I think it's only like 200 something pages, 260 pages on the Kindle anyway. So yes, I'm going to be continuing on with that series. But so far that was a good one, so I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Very classic, like YA, I want to say. Alrighty, so those are the 10/11 books that I read for the month of February. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts were down below in the comments, and also let me know how many books you read for the month of February. I am still shocked that I read 10 books. I didn't realize how many books I had read in this shortest month possible as well. I doubt that's going to happen again in March because I have essays to write that are like 1,500 words long. Not going to happen again, but nonetheless, I'm halfway to my reading goal for the year, so I am super excited for that. Like I said, if you guys enjoyed this, give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, then to be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. If you want to see more of me, then just hit the links in the description box. There's my Twitter, my Instagram, and my TikTok. Go ahead and have a look-see and give me a follow. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will see you soon in another video.